Hey everybody, welcome back to Training Well Done, your podcast on the what, the why, and the how of quality training. I'm your co-host, Coach Donald.
Coach Tim.
And you know what this just made me think about? I've been learning the piano, and I learned how to swim a few years ago. I'm going to bring this together. The intro, I really wasn't thinking. I was just, like, it just happens. And when we see the countdown, I just start talking.
Right.
I don't know what I'm about to say, but I say the same thing, I think, at the beginning of every episode. And so, like, when I've been, like, trying to learn this song, and like I was away from the piano for a couple of days and I go to play, I'm like surprised that my fingers just start doing stuff like, oh, how did this happen? Or like the weirdness of I can play part of the song with both hands now. And it's like, why? How is this happening? Like I'm not really doing this. It's just happening.
Right.
Or like when I went for my first swim back after like, 9 months, 8 months of not 9 or 10 months of not swimming. It was September last time I had swam. Like when I pushed off the wall, I was actually nervous when I got in the water. Like, do I remember how to do the breathing properly?
Right. How's this gonna go?
Like, as I don't remember. I know what I'm supposed to do, but like I was like, I should try a couple practice reps. And I was like, this is a 50-meter pool, and there's too many people here to be just like kind of going out. So you just got to go out and figure it out while you're going. And if you flop around and swallow some water, you just flop around and swallow some water. So I pushed off the wall and I turned and I was like, into it. Okay, I remember how to do this. Right. Cool. Like, because I really wasn't, like, sometimes we're living our life and we're not, like, we're present, hopefully, in the noticing of what's happening, but we're not always present in the directing what's happening. Our brain has made a decision on how to do something, and we are watching ourselves do it.
Right.
You ever, like, talk to somebody and you're like, how did I come up with saying that? Or, like, why did I say that? Whether sometimes it's really something you might say inspirational or something really clever you said coaching wise, or maybe it's something negative because you got into a little argument and you're like, where did this come from? How did I know to say that? And so you realize, oh, my brain is actually running its own formulas and algorithms to like produce based off what it knows about itself and me. And it just comes out and you like, hopefully you're present enough to realize what just happened and be like, oh.
Right. It's like the watcher theory, right? And like you were thinking about something else while you're doing something completely different, right? Like with that intro, I bet if I was like you triggered, right? The countdown. So you just snapped into the intro, nailed the intro because you do it so often, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to like sit down and think about, wait, what do I say in the intro? Oh, it would just take a minute, right?
Even like this conversation, we were not talking about this at all. I don't even know, like I just noticed that I did that and I was like, wait, like I was not prepared to start the podcast. He was just like, press the button. I thought this was a trial thing. I thought he was like, press the button to see if it turns on. And then we were going to hit pause and then start. Like that's what I thought was about to happen.
We're into it. You know what? It's funny that this is coming up too, because I was like, you know how we were saying in the like the last episode where like you are somebody who can just like roll right into a situation and like get down to business, and I'm more of that person that like just needs a little bit more space. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, I'm so glad that Coach Donald is doing the intro because that gives me like that 20 or 30 seconds to just take that mental reset before we start the episode.
I appreciate our yin and yang.
Yeah, it works.
How you feeling?
I'm doing okay. I'm feeling a little weird, and I don't know why. I think I made a dumb decision, and I ran outside this past weekend, and I think it just messed with me a little bit with all the smoke and haze and stuff like that.
You ran into the apocalypse this weekend?
I was like, it's only a few miles. I'm only going easy, right? Like I'm not out trying to do like this up-tempo workout. I'll go in the morning when it's when it's less bad. If I had it all to do over again, I would not have done that.
Was it
and
Friday
I would not advise anyone to do the same.
Was it Friday or Saturday?
It was actually Sunday. So I even gave it like some time to clear up.
But I ran Sunday actually at lunchtime.
Yeah? So you were even later than I was.
Yeah, I ran at like 11,
yeah,
11:30.
And no issues?
I was tired as hell.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if it was because it was the apocalypse outside, which like I didn't notice the smoke on Sunday at all, or I was just out of shape. Like I just felt like I was out of shape.
I noticed it a little bit, but not enough that I thought it was like actually doing anything. Who knows? Maybe
Leslie said she noticed it on Sunday.
Maybe it's unrelated, and I'm just like drawing drawing correlations and conclusions that I shouldn't be drawing.
Leslie said she noticed it, and maybe it's because your VO2 max is so powerful that you're bringing in more like useful air, and so you got more. Maybe your lungs are just bigger than mine and more powerful, so you just got more particulate matter that you can bring in the first place.
I don't know, but hopefully whatever it is clears up.
People
How are you feeling?
I'm much better now that I vented about what I vented about when I got here. Yeah, so I'm a lot better. I'm pretty good. I did 12, well, I guess it was technically 11 400s. I like really dived into creating this 5K plan. And I don't know if you've been seeing me spam you with like Steve Magnus videos on YouTube.
Right.
Because like I realized that Steve Magnus, the Jack Daniels, the Andrew Snow, like they all kind of really align in this. You need to be sprinting and running fast in your base training and kind of pyramiding your program towards your race pace. And I was like, so I've been like, working on that. Like I did all the sprint stuff for the last few months. Now I'm trying to build up my like aerobic engine. But this is my first, like, I have like 2 tiers of my quality days. One is like my aerobic work where like I'm doing like, it would be considered marathon pace, but I'm calling it to myself A1 and A2.
Okay, you mentioned
I'm not running
that this
a marathon.
morning.
I can't run that right now. So like, there's no pace. My pace for a marathon includes walking right now. So like A1 is like the pace that theoretically would be like the next step down from an easy run. That would be a little bit of aerobic work. It's still sub threshold. A2 still sub threshold. It'll be like, it's actually A2 is like literally what my half marathon PR time is. That pace. And then it goes in the threshold, and I'm trying to like stepping it down as I go throughout the summer and fall to get faster. So like my fastest runs on the aerobic branch would be like just around like threshold capacity. It would be just above my target time, just slower than my target time. And on the other side, I'm working on speed and making my sprints longer, and they're gonna get a little slower. So I'm kind of working from that end. Like I'm doing the hill sprints basically with the kids on Thursdays right now, and then I'll work into basically mile training. And so I'm going to try to run a mile PR throughout the course of the fall as well. So I'll work through some mile training, and then I'll bump up to like 3K 2 mile VO2 max training, and then I'll be kind of finishing that block through the end of the fall where like I'm running a little bit faster than my goal race pace, and those runs will be fast but long. And so they start off kind of as sprints, and they get into like just longer runs. And then like the last few weeks will be kind of like at race pace or just around. I think my last workout on my plan, my last workouts are like 6x1K at pace. I think I have another one on there. I think the peak one is like 2x2 mile at goal race pace. So, but like it's all this, I'm also building this aggressively contingent on the fact that if I do like 16 weeks of training for this 5K, I should be able to shove my foot down the throat of my PR.
Yeah,
that I set on like maybe 8 weeks of training.
It actually, one of the things that we're going to chat about today is kind of like about the expectations that you set for yourself and how they need to be realistic based off of how your training is going. But it's kind of interesting as I hear you say all of that. I realize, like, we learn more all the time, right? From a physiology standpoint, we learn how to be more efficient, and we learn how to train better, right? And it's our job as coaches to stay out ahead of that stuff. Remind me to share a conversation with you I had in the gym about that very topic. And I'm just realizing, like, man, the amount of volume that I did during some of my really heavy training blocks compared to the polarization of the training was way out of balance.
What do you mean?
Right? Like, 6x1K can be plenty, right? 2x2 mile is plenty. Sometimes we get caught in this, like, grinding out 10x800 for the sake of just doing 10x800 because it's like a hard workout and it's a nice number. You know what I mean? It's like, why though? Is that actually as effective as you think it is? Probably not, especially if you're not recovering well.
Yeah, like recovery, I'm like kind of like whooped today. I was in the space boots
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
I didn't realize you had a pair of those.
Leslie. Oh, so we had our bridal shower yesterday.
Okay.
And so her sister sent me 40 questions to answer for the question game.
40
questions. It was probably like 36, but it was basically 40. And I'm like,
it's like an
she's texting me like
10 by 800 workout.
She sends me a text like, hey, like, can I send you some questions to send for the shower? I was like, cool, yeah. It was like, I want to say it was like Friday. She sent me this, like Friday afternoon. So I sent her my email. She sent them to me Friday night. I am thinking it's something like 10 questions.
Yeah.
I take a glance at the email. I'm like, oh, this is long as hell. I didn't really deeply read the questions, but I read them like, I got to put some thought to this because it's like a bunch of stuff about our relationship that I don't think about every day.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, bruh. So then I'm like taking all day Saturday. We leave your shower. She's texting me while I'm there. Like, actually, when I get in the car, are you going to get to those today? Bro, you sent me like 40 questions. Like, I'm going to get to it. I had like went for a run for Saturday night. Liz is like, if you're going to just not do it, just tell her you're not going to do it. And I was like, I'm gonna do it.
I just got to process.
I just got to process it.
Yeah.
Like, she sent me, this is a homework. So I went for a run. And I got back from the run. Of course, you feel a lot better after the run. So I'm sitting there like, yeah, no. I'm answering the questions, which was like, I did really good. I got questions right that she got wrong, and it's about her. And but one of them was like, what's the best gift she ever got you? And I was like, the compression boots. And she knew there was the compression boots. I use those all the time when I'm running.
People who have them, man, they love them. Oh, that's cool.
Let's talk about some sports psychology, shall we?
Yes. Let's get into this. So last time we decided that we needed to branch off and treat one aspect of emotional regulation as its whole episode. So that's what we're going to kick off with today. But before we dive into that, couple things we wanted to review is just like what sports psychology is and what are the components of it and like what exactly the heck we're talking about here, right? So if you've listened to the past episodes, you'll remember the sports psychology is the study and application of psychological principles designed to improve athletic performance, motivation, and well-being in sport and physical activity. And a lot of this is based off of cognitive behavioral therapy. So there are a lot of parallels between the two. Or you can consider sports psychology as a subheading of cognitive behavioral therapy. So far, we've talked about mental skills training and emotional regulation. So these are two components of sports psychology that are mental skills that you can train and hone just like you can train and hone your physical skills. So it's a really good opportunity for athletes to take like their training to the next level. Well, they're training in their competitions, obviously, to the next level. So if you haven't listened to those two episodes, I would go back and do that. And then today we're going to talk about acceptance-based approaches.
I'm like thinking about like what that might mean, and I think we're going to talk about like some of the myths about that. And I'm wondering like how much is like acceptance in reality, right? So now that I want to get back into endurance training. So I used to play pro ultimate frisbee. I've got paid to play ultimate frisbee. Was it rent money? No. But was it lunch money and a little bit more than that? Yes. So I got
paid
to play a sport.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Yep.
Leslie went pro for her bodybuilding show. She's still the better athlete because she won. I was a practice player that got bumped up. And I'm like, because of that, right, there's this whole idea of like, I could always go back to being like a pro athlete if I try hard enough. If I tried hard enough, I could go back to playing pro frisbee. I don't want to. But now I'm like, I'm watching all this triathlon content. Like, could I be a pro triathlete? I can barely fucking swim. I can't even tread water right now when I'm wondering this question. So I'm like, acceptance. Does acceptance mean that like I can't swim good enough to be good at that? Is it like understanding my limitations of like, could I be fast enough at this age? Could I become fast enough before I'm like 38 or 40 to like say run a 15-minute 5? Could I be Patrick Burgos fast in my lifetime?
Yeah.
Could I? Or like, do I have to accept the reality of like, I might not have that genetic ability.
Right.
I might be too old.
Right.
I don't know if I could be too old. I think it's more of a gene thing, but I don't know. I don't want to say that on the show, but I'm not sure. But like, there's this acceptance, right? There's a certain point where like it's hard to hit your peak, but I also recognize people hit their peak in their 30s.
Yeah.
Is it acceptance to be like, you should have learned how to swim when you were like 5. Sorry, you picked the wrong setup to learn how to swim. So you're not going to be able to be good enough at swimming to go and be that good in a field of triathletes who've been swimming for that long. Like, is that part of the acceptance part? Like acceptance of like, the constraints of time and work and family, or like, I don't know. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah.
I know this sounds like a little negative, but like I do feel very ambitious about these things, but it's also like understanding there's constraints.
It's a little bit of all of that. I think you bring up a good point. It's like with that, the genetic piece obviously comes into play. And I think that given the right context and situations and motivation and environment, right? Like just having time to say, hey, I want to run this 15-minute 5K. I think people can maximize their genetic potential with anything that they want to do, right? Like think of a guy like Ryan Hall, who goes from like setting an American record in a distance event, and now a few years later he's like this big beefy bodybuilding guy that you put him side by side and you're like, that's the same dude. And like does that he's a good athlete, so he does that at a really, really high level on both ends of the spectrum, but like that's where the genetic part comes into play. And like he's gotten as good as he can be at this one thing, and then turned and pivoted and gotten as good as he can be at this other thing, but that's only as good as he can be.
But his as good as he can be is world class. His
correct,
ceiling is world class.
Correct. In that context, it is. But still could be outpaced or like outperformed by someone who has dedicated that time and energy and attention, blah, 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 who just happens to have a better genetic disposition towards that particular activity, right? Anyway, that's a whole thing. But I think what you were leaning into is a good place to start in terms of like what acceptance actually means in this context. And I think you mentioned that there's a little bit of a negativity bias into what you were saying, and the idea of accepting something in this framework it's not a dismissive thing. It's not just throwing in the towel and walking away because like you haven't been swimming since you were 5 years old, right? Accepting just accepting the fact that you haven't been swimming since you were 5 years old. Some of these other guys have been swimming since they were 5 years old. That is probably going to have some sort of measurable impact at the end of the day, but it doesn't mean like I shouldn't even give it a shot, right? Especially you, man. You're still young enough to go for it. You're good. You're good. So the idea is that like we're not trying to eliminate all of these negative thoughts that are happening, right? A lot of people think that we're just trying to get rid of these. And we touched on this a little bit in the last episode with emotional regulation, but we're accepting these thoughts that these negative thoughts that we're having for what they are, and appreciating them for what they are, but not letting them affect behavior. Right. So again, that's what I mean when I say it's not like a dismissive mentality, like, oh, this thing happened, whatever. Like you're actively recognizing, oh, I'm experiencing doubt about my ability to complete this race, or I am frustrated because I've hit roadblocks in my training, right? Or I'm scared that my competition is going to be better than me. It's saying, hey, there are competitors that are probably going to be better than you. How are we going to respond to that, right?
So it's kind of like being really sober about what's
Good word.
going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Not letting yourself be like, oh, I'm going to just crush everybody. Like just kind of blindly, although maybe sometimes that could be helpful. I don't know. But like versus like, you know, people thinking like, oh man, I'm going to do so bad. Everybody's so good. And that definitely kind of shuns people's performance. So just recognizing,
Sure.
hey, I'm at, you know, a state meet, or I'm at the Pittsburgh Marathon. There's going to be other really good people here. You're not at some random race in the middle of nowhere where like there's not a big pool of people where, yeah, maybe you could win, but you're not treating the New York Marathon like that because you know better.
Yeah. I think this is it really harkens back to what we were talking about last time, Coach, and just like that sort of like that stoic mindset, right? And giving the space, the time and the space to metabolize these emotions and these thoughts and these feelings instead of just like having a knee-jerk reaction.
Okay, I think I was missing the mark. So what you're saying is really being able to see how you're feeling about your competition that's coming up or your training, and being able to just note what's the actual data, and being able to, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, looking at your thoughts about the data and saying, here's the data, here's what or maybe not just your thoughts and your feelings of, here's what I think and feel about the data. What do I think about that?
Yes. Like I'm having this thought. Let me figure out where this thought is coming from, why it's coming from that place, what it means, and then how I can respond to it. It very much goes back to how we kicked off the episode, right? With the, with the ability to like have two separate, have two different parts of your brain focused on the same thing. Like you're having the thought, but you're also thinking about the thought, right? You're doing the intro, but you're watching yourself do the intro. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Another common myth that is associated with this acceptance based approach is that athletes always need to be confident in order to perform well. And confidence is obviously a good thing to have and a good skill to practice and a good tool, right, to have in your belt. But that confidence needs to be grounded in something, right? And so the performance actually should come before the confidence is built. So, and we'll talk about this later on, is like stacking small bricks, right?
Okay.
So it's, you might be the night before a race, you may say, oh, I'm really worried about hitting my goal time for this race. But then you can recognize that you're having that moment of self-doubt. You can go back to your point and say, well, I did this workout and I hit my splits, and then I did this workout and I hit my splits, and I did my time trial and I hit my splits. Okay, maybe this nervousness is not as it's pretty unfounded because I've done the work. I have the data to show, And then the fourth myth that we want to address before we dive into the weeds here is just the fact that like positive thinking is great, but I think the word that we used last time was whimsical.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not just like rainbows and unicorns. Okay. The acceptance-based approach is like having that dose of reality in it, rather than just being a fantastical, whimsical, everything's gonna be great, positive attitude.
It's positive in knowing like, hey, if I follow through with this training plan, this is what's reasonable and I can aim for this outcome. Or you're in a race and you recognize, hey, maybe my body doesn't actually feel very good today. Maybe I slept weird. Sometimes you just don't feel very perky. And but also being able to recognize that you've had training days where you didn't feel that way and the workout actually went better than you thought it was going to. And that sometimes just in life, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're like, meh, but your day actually was decent if you look at what happened and the interactions that you had. You just didn't feel great. And that this might happen in your race. You show up to run or you show up to compete that day and you're like, I don't feel very great. But then you like run, you either win, you run a PR, you just do surprisingly well. Because there's some times where we are actually maybe too whimsical almost. You wake up and you feel amazing, but like the output actually doesn't reflect that.
Match.
It doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes it does happen.
Yeah, no, that example, Coach, is exactly how that flow chart works, right? That we talked about last time, is saying, I don't feel great today, or you're in the race, right? I don't feel great today. My body is not responding the way that I was expecting it to respond. And that's where a lot of times athletes just like shut down and throw in the towel, right? Okay, I'm not the outcome that I expected is not like manifesting right now. But when you go through that flow chart and you give yourself that space, then you can say, my body is not responding like I thought it would in this moment right now. But, oh wait, I remember there was that one workout session that we did where I felt the same way, and it actually turned out to be a really good workout session, like you said. And then you create that positive feedback loop instead of the negative spiral.
Yep.
But it all starts with saying, I accept the fact that my body is not responding the way that I thought it would respond today. Like just accepting the reality of the situation instead of trying to like will your way out of it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about some of these acceptance-based approaches, right? There's various techniques and ways to go about this and being able to stay grounded with, what your situation is. So, and really being able to help each other as athletes with being able to like perform and show up regardless of how your inner world is feeling. Because at the end of the day, if we're doing a sport, we need to show up and perform the way that we trained for and planned for. And you're not, as you mentioned, not going to feel great all the time. Sometimes you have to work through negative emotions. Sometimes you have to calm yourself down because you're actually so excited and so hyped that you're overstimulated, and you need to be able to kind of bring yourself back to the ground as well. So let's talk about a bit of that.
Just grounding yourself is another good word choice. When we talk about practicing an acceptance-based approach, we're intentionally practicing staying grounded, to your point, but also making a focused effort on performing effectively in the presence of all of these difficult thoughts, emotions, physical sensations that you're experiencing. Because like you said, right, like that's our job as athletes, is to show up and perform. Okay. It's not our job as athletes to just reduce or eliminate negative thoughts, emotions, or feelings, because they are going to happen, right? It comes with the territory. So what we're trying to do is use these tools and these mental techniques to to have these be useful learning experiences, potential motivators in the moment, in the best case scenario, and to at least not them negatively affect your performance in the moment, rather than just trying to get rid of them altogether.
Okay.
So many of these acceptance-based approaches are based off of acceptance and commitment therapy, so ACT, and that's basically just a body of mindfulness research. So comes back to that, know thyself, grasshopper, that we talked about last time. So if you're interested in that, you can look up that acceptance and commitment therapy. But the entire point, again, is to just spend less energy fighting these experiences that we're having, and more energy investing in effective responses or behaviors that we can turn to when these things happen. Athletes, you could probably speak better to this, just given your experience working with some people, on the younger side of the spectrum. But I found that as a coach, the athletes' maturity level dictates a whole lot of how they respond to these negative internal experiences, right? Like, and I'll let you jump in here if this is a terrible example, but like a youth athlete who's new to sport and hasn't trained hard before is going to experience a hard effort that they interpret as being difficult, and because it's difficult, they don't want to do that. Like they just don't want to do that, right?
Every day coaching high school.
Exactly. Right. A more experienced or a more advanced athlete can then say, okay, this is a difficult thing to do. It is, and not to be too cliche, like it's supposed to hurt. And I don't want that to be interpreted as the no pain, no gain approach. Right. But like, this is a session that is supposed to feel bad. Let's go back to our episode on like the tempo and threshold, right? Like I am supposed to want this to end. The difference is they know that it eventually will end, and they can sort of talk themselves out of that like immediate, oh, this is too hard, I give up, by saying, okay, I accept this for what it is. I understand, like I've been here before. I understand the purpose, and I can just sit with this discomfort for the next 5 minutes of this run.
Yeah. Makes me think there's a mom-daughter combo, and you'll pick up on what I'm talking about. And kids like Phenom, and I remember we would go to these track meets a few months ago, and kid was really nervous about competing with high schoolers, and so there was this kind of anxiety that went around that kind of turned into like, well, what if like they beat me, or what if like it turned into like being in heats sometimes that she could way overperform it, and she would like win the heat by like a lot.
Okay.
And getting the kid, like, it's okay to be in more competitive scenarios where like you're going to actually be running against people that like you are still a middle schooler. Like these are high schoolers, and they're fast. Like you're going to have to be able to contend with that. But sometimes the experience helps with being able to kind of accept the situation, and sometimes the situation is the context of like you're 14 and she's 17 years old. You're 13 and that's the 17-year-old. So that kind of give yourself some grace in that whole context of grace, or even when it comes to like training, though, both kiddo and mom very much can handle something being difficult. One fusses more than the other about it being difficult, but like we'll dive in and do the thing. But there was a competition recently, and mom, like, I think, and it's a conversation we need to have, is like struggling with like how good the other people are, because some of them have been running for 30 years. Some of them have been friends competing against each other for several years. And so, being able to kind of break into the social dynamics and be open, but also being able to, trust oneself and be okay with the performance. Because sometimes if you're so caught up in what other people have that you don't have, and you run a PR, but you're not excited about that because you're caught up in, why is she so fast? She's 53 years old or 60 years old. Like, why am I not that fast? But then like you see the track kit, You see the social. This person's been competing maybe since they were in their 40s. They might have literally ran in college. Some of them might have only not ran since high school, but there's being able to accept like the situation that you're in, and being able to roll with that, which is like an ongoing thing. There's another competition coming up, and actually our conversation today really revolved around how do you navigate the social dynamic of that? Because I want you to make friends at this. Like,
That's
you
a good
come here
point.
and run with us, but
That's a good
these
point.
are teenagers. There's some college people, but they're barely adults. So like, and the other adult that's there is still half your age. So, you need to like navigate that space. That'll bring you a little bit more ease, and just accept like you got started at this like at a different time, and like some people's genes are just different for what bouncing back from high school is for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've been training for as little time as you. And if they have, oh well. Honestly, oh well.
I'm curious. Does this particular athlete in question have a background in sports? Like, were they athletic at some point in their life?
Just dance.
Yeah.
If I can recall correctly, just dance, but no competitive sports.
Yeah.
Very competitive person, no competitive sports. Like, this is like a new thing to witness with, their child, and kind of lit a fire in them. Like, actually watching me even go compete was like, oh, like, I mean, you're not as old as me, but you're definitely older than all these kids. You're twice their age.
Yeah.
And you go to compete. Oh, I could do this.
Yeah.
And like, so seeing, their daughter do exceptionally well, seeing, me as the coach go out there and compete and beat some high schoolers, it's like turned into like, I could do this. Like, so there was like a big light bulb of competition. Like, oh, I could do that. But being an athlete is new to them.
Right.
I'll say that. Being an athlete is new to them.
That's what I was trying to get at, because the athletic maturity, it can be different between these two athletes, right? And when you're more athletically mature, it is much easier to line up on the start line and say, that person's going to run their race, that person's going to run their race, I'm going to run my race, and we'll see what shakes out. Instead of, why am I lining up next to this person if I know like they're that much faster than me? And then that's going to affect your performance. Yeah. Right. We should get her to listen to these episodes.
I might send her a voice note after this.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually a really good, a really interesting dynamic. I don't want to say dichotomy, but it definitely an interesting dynamic, just like with the different mental approaches that they take, and then subsequently how it affects outcomes, or even how they process those outcomes. Like you said, like PR is still a PR. You can come in dead last, but if you set a PR, it doesn't change the fact that it's a PR. Yeah. So
you're not even thinking about, and sometimes we don't think about the people we beat. We think about who beat it. You run a half marathon, and I sometimes start in the back of these races because I don't really know where I should start. And like anything from like a half marathon down, like I'm pretty good at picking up as I go. Marathons are still a different beast. But when I'm running like a half marathon or a 10K, like I might start in the back. So I'm literally in some of these races, especially if it's a big one, passing hundreds of people, literal hundreds of people. And like, I don't even think about that. Like, I'm saying it right now. Like, dude, you be passing hundreds of people. Are you exaggerating? No, I'm not exaggerating. Hundreds, because you start in the back.
Yeah.
You start, if I run a 140 something in a race and I start back with a 230 people, like I've passed
a lot of
people in a race where there was 8,000 people there. And I don't think about none of those hundreds of people. I think about two things. I'm counting how many people caught me after the first couple of miles. Like, first couple of miles, you never know where people are at. But once the race gets settled, I'm like, oh, that person passed me. That person passed me. I notice if I'm going back and forth with a particular person. So I noticed that. And it might be a dozen people. In a serious race, it might be a couple dozen, but it's usually like less than 20 that I notice past me, maybe like after mile 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then I'm only paying attention to who I'm finishing next to. Whether they caught up to me to be running against me at the finish, or I caught up to them, and especially if like I caught up to them but I can't beat them, or I passed them at mile 12, but they're getting back at me at the finish. I remember I did the Baltimore half marathon, which was a hard race. Like I was on the struggle bus at like halfway because it was this big climb and I started off way too hot, and like I had a whole adventure trying to get race pins. I had run like 2 or 3 miles just to get my pins.
Just to get like safety?
Yeah, because I didn't pick them up the night before when I got the bib. I just picked up the bib.
Yeah.
I don't know. Idiot. It was my second or third half. And anyway, so I get to the end and I'm like going down the struggle bus. And I was getting passed by some random people. I was not doing great. This is not one of those races where I didn't get passed by probably dozens of people. I might have passed a few hundred people, but I got passed by dozens back, if not 100. So I'm at the end, and there's this guy. For the last like 200, we go doom, doom. We get into a foot race. I think he beat me in the foot race, and dude was definitely older than me, and he beat me down the stretch. And like we dapped up, and I was like, sick. This race was like 5 years ago. I remember this, and that's how I process the outcome. That's part of my processing of the outcome. Like, it wasn't a great race for multiple reasons, but like, I remember most strongly losing in the last 150. Not the people that I passed, not the hey, you keep going, not all these other factors. I lost the sprint at the end.
I like the races where the course is designed to like sort of loop back around in several areas, so you can sort of like see where the people ahead of you are and how they're like, what do they look like, how are they holding up, and then you can also see like, all right, here's that guy that I passed a mile ago, but he's closing the gap. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because it is fun to like jockey around like that.
I remember last thing about the outcome thing. So Greg B, I've had a goal for years that my goal was to beat him in a 5K.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And I beat him on a technicality, and like it still doesn't feel great, but like he's a lot older than me. He's got his things going on, so like I'll never get a fair race against him again. We did run around a square 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. We did run around the square. Yeah, it was the year I ran my 5K PR. And he started in front of me. He started way in the front because he's been running a long time. He knows. Just start in the front, dude. I'm starting in the back. I think I got up there a little later. I was setting the tent up, so I got to run through all these people. I catch him at like mile 1.5, going up the hill to go, like when you're coming from the bottom of Frick Park, you go up that big climb to the bridge. So I catch him early on, and I'm kind of running with him, and then once we get up to like Braddock Ave, I like accelerate and run past him. And I'm running up, and I always tell people when I'm running around the square about this. I get to Clayton. I think we're going to go down. So I'm exerting all this energy across Fern Hollow Bridge just to go up more. I'm like, oh my God. So we get up there. He catches me back, and then we're going downhill. But I just didn't have the legs to like fly downhill to keep up. So he finishes what looks like visually like probably 15, 20 seconds in front of me. But I ran a faster time, because I started in the back. So I had to catch up to his position. We didn't start like head to head. So he doesn't care. I'm the one competing with him. He's not competing with me. He's like, oh yeah, you got it. Like you won. Like you finally got me. And I was like, I mean, I did.
But like doesn't count.
You ran through the finish line first.
Right. We did not like. When we were racing each other at the end, you were ahead of me. So it feels like I get that. Yeah, that's not an easy course. That's a fun course, though.
It's gonna be my race opener this fall.
I actually drove back across that bridge. When was this? Sunday. Oh, because I had to take the detour around the tunnel, whatever. I drove back across that bridge, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember. That's where I died last summer, making that turn off the bridge. So we've sort of briefly touched on this, or like skimmed the surface with some of these other things that we've been talking about, but an acceptance-based approach doesn't deny these negative thoughts or emotions from coming up. It doesn't try and suppress them. It also doesn't it doesn't disregard the experience of physical discomfort that you might have during a training session or a race, right? In the sense that the acceptance-based approach is not just quote unquote positive thinking, and positive thinking is not just rainbows and unicorns and these things that we've mentioned. We're sort of straddling the line here between having the athletic maturity to not try and push down the fact like, oh, this effort hurts or is unsustainable. And we're also not trying to just ignore it, right? You're sitting with this. That's what I mean. That's where the word is coming from, right? You're accepting that that's an experience that you're having and not trying to push back against it. You remember when we were talking about like your resources are limited, right? And focusing that energy and attention on something during training or racing on something that isn't fundamentally serving you or helping you perform better is just a waste of those resources. So there's a saying that I like, and it's pretty popular, so y'all have probably heard of it, but it goes, what you resist persists, right? And so when you're running a hard race and you're experiencing this physical discomfort, it's much more effective. It's a more effective management strategy to deal with this discomfort by saying, I am experiencing this discomfort, as opposed to trying to talk yourself out of, oh, this doesn't hurt, I could push through this, or well, or this hurts too much, I need to back off, I need to slow down or scale back. You're recognizing that it's there and that it's happening, but not actively fighting against it or trying to avoid it.
So it's kind of recognizing like what's the difficulty there, being able to plan for it, acknowledge it, but not trying to let me just shove it in the closet or act like it's not there, because it's going to keep coming back at you, whether it's a performance, like a challenge you have performance-wise, or maybe it's just a life logistic. If you try to ignore that thing, like it's just going to keep getting in the way versus like, hey, it just is what it is, and like how do you just plan around that? Right.
No, that's a great, it is it is what it is am I going to let this create that negative feedback loop and just spiral? Oh, I'm experiencing this discomfort, I can't manage this, I'm not prepared for this race is going to, and just you start circling the drain. Or saying, this is supposed to feel this way. This is a long race, or this is a hard race, and like I am supposed to feel this way. And that's why these are skills, again, to go back to those past two episodes. You can practice this in training, right? It's a concept that known as cognitive fusion versus diffusion, and that's just
never heard of that.
Creating the distance between yourself and the thought, right? Like you feel a certain way, you are not a certain way, right? It doesn't define you. It's just a thought that you're having. And this is like I said, you practice this during your training. When you get to the late stages of that long run, or those last few intervals of a hard session, we do all the physical things, right? Okay, focus on your form, keep your cues in mind, blah, 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 blah. We can also say, hey, listen, or coach athletes to say, listen, you know what you're going to probably experience here, right? How does that make you feel? And then how are you going to manage that feeling? Okay, boom, go on, with your next rep. So it's a big it's low hanging fruit when it comes to athlete development, is to like use the acceptance based approach to create the athletic maturity that someone will need as they progress in their career and continue to, be involved in whatever their athletic endeavor is.
I feel like this episode maybe should be partially titled "Thinking About Your Thoughts," because we keep coming back to that. As athletes in the gym, when we're at the track, like, what are you experiencing? I'm trying to work on this aspect of coaching where I'm not. I built a lot of my career on giving feedback a lot, and that being a symbolism of good coaching, which, I mean, feedback does matter, but sometimes with some of my older athletes, like, actually, I'm going to just let you do several reps, and I want to know what your feedback is. Like, what are you experiencing, so you can pay attention to that physically, and then we kind of start thinking about, like, mentally, what are you experiencing? Because I need you to be aware of what's going on, because, like, I'm not in your body, so I don't know what you're dealing with. I can tell you what I observe, but sometimes if I tell you what I observe and what I want you to do, you might have already figured this out, or you might have different words to describe it, and I might take away from that if I say what I have to say first.
Right. I love that.
It's its own discipline to keep up with that, but like I'm slowly getting better at that.
Yeah, and a lot we frequently ask athletes, like, well, how do you feel, right? Or how did you feel? We pretty much always know the answer to that question, right? Because we can see it, and we're just trying to get them to make these connections. But to your point, it takes it to another level when you're like, how did that feel, and what were you thinking?
Yeah, I really like.
And then just shutting up and getting out of the way and letting the athlete go through that process.
Yeah, I've been going to like the what question of like, what did you feel? What did you experience on that one? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Whatever you experience is what I want to hear about. Physically, mentally, like, what was your experience? And I didn't. I want you to pay attention to that.
Right. No, it's cool stuff.
Let's kind of close out looking at kind of just some of the research and like, what do these things improve, and kind of re-going through some of these takeaway pieces. I've never heard of like cognitive diffusion or diffusion. Like, when you described it, it makes sense, but like I've never heard of those terms.
Yeah. So the research has shown that like the practice and implementation of acceptance-based approach or other mindfulness interventions or protocols help with athletes' attention regulation. So that goes back to that bandwidth that we talked about, right? Like, I'm lined up with this athlete that's faster than me. I know they're going to beat me, but I can't pay attention to that. I got to focus on my own race, right? Mm-hmm. So conserving your bandwidth for the things that matter and will have a positive impact on your own performance. Psychological flexibility. Okay, this race is not going according to plan. Let's go through that loop. Let's figure out why. Let's figure out, but having the flexibility to say, okay, this race is not going to plan. How can I best navigate this, instead of just saying, I might as well just drop out.
Yeah.
Right. Also, it helps athletes build resilience under pressure. Okay. So it's not letting a lot of external factors influence how they feel, or accepting the fact that there are some external factors influencing how they feel, and then metabolizing those feelings. Bounce back faster from mistakes. That's a big one, right? Like, I dropped the ball. Why did I drop the ball? I took my eyes off the ball. How can I not drop the ball next time?
Yeah.
Okay, keep your eyes on the ball, rather than that ball bounced right off my hands, and I suck as an athlete. I must be having a terrible day, and like, should just give up and take myself out of the game now, right? And then, as a function of that, consistent performance, right, over the longer haul. Because the more reps that you get in with this stuff, the more times that you can say, I dropped that ball, but like, I know why, and I can fix that mistake. it becomes more automatic.
Okay.
As you go throughout your career. Yeah.
Because you like have less like crazy fluctuations because you don't like get down in dumps, and it's just easier to get recentered to like, hear me. All right, there's all this going on, but let me refocus on my execution. What do I need to do well? Whereas I guess with less athletic maturity, there's a lower ability to refocus on what needs to get done execution wise, because now you're worried about outcomes. Or I watched a video, I want to say it was like over the weekend or last week, and it talked about how we can end up worrying about outcomes, and that's worrying about the future that's not here,
right?
And then now you're actually not in the reality to create the future you want, because now you're messing up the reality because you're worrying about this hypothetical future.
Hypothetical. Yeah. No, it's that like middle of the road consistency, and not the crazy oscillation between like I'm on fire or I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know where your brain went with that, but we all know those guys, right? Who are like really good athletes with really low athletic maturity. And man, when they're on, they can be really, really on because of that positive feedback loop. But then when they're off, forget about it.
Yeah, I have athletes like the moment they're like in a negative, they got about a couple negative things to say or have happened to where like they will go out and just like barely jog. And
right.
Or they'll like go out and not compete because they're all flustered in their head about this and that. And then you have another person like they might have gotten some terrible news on the phone, or they might have ran a really bad race, and it's just like they can just throw it away and just come back to the next one.
Right.
And it was something way worse than, at least to me, way worse than what the other kid who got flustered had to do.
Yeah. That's why this emotional stuff is so important, right? It really, it really is a huge chunk of how athletes train and perform.
Yeah.
It's how well they manage their emotions and their mental skills.
We hope that you all got some key parts here. Coach, can you just kind of rename some of these things in regards to like some of these approaches and how we can kind of move through so that, you all can kind of take note of that and think about when you get to your next training cycle, when you get to your next competition, what is it that you need to do kind of on a mental, emotional note to stay grounded with the process?
Yeah. So if you hear anything from this episode, the big few things are we're noticing these thoughts and emotions and feelings that we're having, right? But we are not letting them define us. Then we don't try and filter uncomfortable experiences or negative thoughts, right? That's the resisting. And if you resist it, it's going to keep coming back. Don't think about a pink elephant. What are you going to think about? A pink elephant, right? So we don't want to push back against them. We just want to notice that they're there and not just focus on the positive ones, but also accept the negative ones, but remain distant from them, right? You are not your thoughts. You are not your experiences. These are just things that you are thinking or things that are happening to you. Yeah. And if you have that diffusion approach, then you can better respond, right? So you can redirect your energy and attention to, okay, how am I going to handle this? What do I need to change to deal with this? How can I even convert this into something that is useful for me in the moment, right?
That's lemonade.
So an acceptance-based approach really helps athletes perform effectively by changing the relationship that they have with these thoughts and emotions, and teaching them, to get back to that athletic maturity piece, how the acceptance-based approach can aid their overall performance and consistency as they move throughout their career.
Gotcha. Okay. Love that. Those are some good things to think about. And it's just sometimes I need to work on is how I keep things in context for why things are what, not comparing to other people is always a thing. So very cool. So hopefully you all got some good thoughts some ways to think about your thoughts and your feelings about how you're performing and training, because that can affect even the quality of what you get in your training, let alone just the competition itself.
I like your idea for the episode title. Thinking about thoughts.
Hey, so that's kind of the end of this piece. But if you are looking for some more training guidance, make sure you check out the webinar, Strength Training for Runners. It is our webinar that goes over how to do strength training, how to program your strength training. We talk about plyometric work, and there's also exercise demos in that. So check that out. I think we have a couple of spots left for fall race training.
Yeah, depending on an athlete's race date. If you're looking for like a later fall event, excuse me, like mid to late October, early November.
Okay.
We still got time to get you prepped.
Cool. So, check out our fall race training. And that's all we got for now. We have another episode coming up for sports mindset and being able to have sports psychology and how do you use that. So stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks, y'all.
Ciao.